Welcome to Christian Warrior Training. My name is Keith. We have a ton of stuff to talk about, including a gunman that opened fire and fired over 60 rounds at an Ohio church. We got a woman that tried to strangle a church employee, and just all sorts of other crime that happened during the past week. If you're new here, we always talk about crime that happened at churches, and we always talk about what you can do to prevent that crime at your church. Speaking of which, I'll be doing a free class up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho on August 2nd. All the money raised during this is going to go to the Coeur d'Alene firefighters that were shot and killed or wounded. All the money is going to go to them. I'm doing it for free. We're going to pass the hat around and hopefully raise some money for those firefighters that need it. Seats are limited. I only have 600 seats available. I haven't really widely advertised this yet. This is the first time I'm talking about it on YouTube. And there were already 200 and something seats already taken. So I anticipate that we'll be close to sold out, especially since it's free. It's an 8-hour course. We're going to go over everything you need to know for church security. Again, that's August 2nd, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. You will have to get a ticket to go. It is free, though. Head over to Christian Warrior Training. You'll find my advertisement for that class. In fact, in every newsletter from now until then, there will be this little advertisement there. You can click it and you'll be able to register over there. All right, we start with kind of a terror update. And this terror update is going to come from my home state of Idaho. This morning, a bunch of churches in the Boise, Idaho area woke up to this manifesto right here. It is around almost 300 pages. And the gentleman that wrote it, and this is why it's important for you guys to read through everything, he lists 5 specific churches that he says that are basically on his hit list, essentially. And you can see it's quite extensive. He goes in depth to talk about specific church staff at different churches, including one in Minneapolis, and we have contacted all the churches. It is very alarming language that's coming out of this manifesto. Law enforcement's been notified. I'm just letting you know that there's been a significant increase in these types of manifestos. And if somebody goes to this length to establish how upset they are with the church, he even said he's one of the second witnesses in Revelation. I mean, he goes in depth. When they start having delusions like that, then your church should be concerned and should be worried. And so we've advised them to increase security at their church. But just in our area, this is the second person that is threatening churches. The other one on social media is threatening to shoot up churches in our area. I know we're going to talk about some more churches in Pennsylvania, but I've noticed that this has been increasing everywhere across the United States. And I think it's a lot to do with some of the rhetoric about what's happening in the Middle East, and they're pushing it on Christians and Jews, and the people that are unhinged mentally are seeing this as permission to go attack churches. And we've seen that through lone wolf attacks that have been stopped, including one that we're going to talk about this week. There was another one that was stopped when law enforcement showed up, and we'll review that. There is so much to cover. We also have this letter that was put out. The Hopewell Township Police Department in Pennsylvania, they issued a public safety letter on July 8th warning local residents and churchgoers about 3 suspicious incidents reported at churches across Beaver County within an 8-day period. Now, the incidents occurred at New Bethlehem Church in Independence, Genesis Church in Hopewell, and Ridge Point Church in Brighton Township. Now, reports involved individuals described as Middle Eastern or Hispanic males engaging in concerning behavior, including leaving an electric bike battery inside a church, taking possible photos from a car, and lingering in parking lots after services. Now, look, churches have to take security seriously, and it's easy to dismiss unusual behavior like this as harmless. I got to give it to the Hopewell Police Department. They came out and they wrote a letter. They're doing better than most police departments in America that tend to bury incidents like this and not advise churches, just like the FBI has not been advising you of all the stuff I have been advising you about. It's important for you to have situational awareness, team communication, and some kind of a plan of action, because that's going to deter threats. People are going to see that. They're going to turn around. They're going to leave because they see that you're on your game. So be observant and don't be hesitant to report anything out of the ordinary. Feel free to call law enforcement and let them know what's going on. In fact, in the prior case we talked about with the manifesto, law enforcement was notified first thing in the morning on behalf of all those churches, and they're running with it right now. All right, next up, we got a gunman that fires 60 rounds at a church basketball court in Liberty Township, Ohio. Now, these gunmen opened fire on a basketball court at Pleasant Valley Church in Liberty Township while a large group was present playing. Approximately 60 shots were fired, with at least 3 striking the backboard, and broken glass was found at the scene. Now, no one was injured. Witnesses stated a vehicle arrived and individuals began shooting, though no one recognized the suspects or the vehicle. The church has turned over security footage to Liberty Police, and one of the vehicles was reportedly had an identifying mark that's going to aid in the investigation. Now, look, this is a clear reminder that church grounds, especially outdoor spaces like basketball courts, can be soft targets without proper oversight. Now, while it's a blessing no one was hit, this could have easily turned into a mass casualty event. Now, church security teams have to consider these areas as part of their patrol zones, and you have to make sure that camera footage, lighting, and access control covers areas just like this. Now, next up, our next story takes us to Rapid City, South Dakota, where a 39-year-old woman was arrested and charged with attempted murder following an alleged assault on a church employee at Destiny Foursquare Church. Now, the incident occurred on the afternoon of July 8 during a scheduled meeting at the church. According to police, the woman allegedly stood up during the meeting and began strangling the employee. A second staff member intervened and stopped the assault, after which the suspect fled the scene. She was later apprehended near East North Street and taken to the Pennington County Jail. Now, look, this is exactly why church staff must remain situational aware, even if it's in a seemingly routine meeting like this one. Evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it walks right through the front door with an appointment. Now, stay prayed up and prepared. Your safety is part of your ministry. All right, next up in Naples, Florida, during a Sunday morning service on July 6th, a 23-year-old man entered a church claiming to be a trained killer and openly carrying a handgun at his waist. Witnesses said he asked how much it would take to stop a mass shooting and began quietly displaying the weapon. Now, 2 church staff members took quick action to shield children and alert authorities while de-escalating the situation. Now, deputies from the Collier County Sheriff's Office arrived promptly and safely disarmed the suspect and removed a loaded handgun with a round chambered and 3 full magazines. Next up in Payson, Utah, a 20-year-old man has been charged with multiple felony offenses after allegedly engaging in unlawful conduct with a 14-year-old in a church parking lot on July 2023. Now, according to authorities, the individual met the minor through social media, arranged to pick her up, and took her to the location instead of a public park. Despite the victim's stated boundaries, the man reportedly ignored her objections. He is being held without bail in the Utah County Jail. Now, next up is Kansas City, Missouri. A 50-year-old man has been charged with 8 counts related to child abuse offenses, including allegations of inappropriate conduct with minors under the age of 15. Now, these incidents span from 2008 until 2024. And according to court records, the man served as a piano player and a member at a church in Jackson County and also offered private piano lessons. Now, authorities allege he used his connection to the church community to build relationships with families and access children. The accused was arrested on July 2nd. Now, look, this is an example of why churches have to implement rigorous child safety protocols and background checks for anyone in leadership or anybody working with youth. And trust must never replace accountability. Now, look, this is a clear example of how a pedophile is going to target a church to gain access to victims. And I just have one question for you. What are you doing to protect your children at church? Maybe not your own children, but just the church's children. We have mentioned numerous times that pedophiles will target churches solely to gain access to children. And we still see churches that are not doing background checks, background investigations, or even interviews in some cases with people who have access to children. You need to have policy. Next up, authorities in Gresham, Oregon are investigating 2 fires that occurred on the morning of July 8th, which have been determined to be intentionally set. Now, the first fire broke out just before 5 a.m. at the East Portland Moose Lodge on Northeast Halsey Street, where crews found shattered windows and active flames. About 4 hours later, firefighters responded to another blaze at Columbia View Church, located just minutes away, where similar damage was reported. There were 2 broken windows and localized fire damage. Now, look, obviously, it's going to be arson. You got 2 fires just minutes away in the early morning hours. This is your weekly reminder that you need a burglar alarm, a fire alarm, and a 4K video system. These are the most basic forms of security that any church can have. It should be your number one thing alongside forming a church safety ministry. We have lots of fires at churches this week. In the early morning hours of July 8th, A lot of stuff happened on July 8th. Montgomery Fire Rescue responded to a fire at Clay Street Missionary Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. Fire crews were seen finishing their work on the scene shortly after daybreak. The full extent of the damage to the historic church has not yet been publicly detailed, and the cause of the fire is still under investigation. Now, look, again, it's your weekly reminder, 4K video system, burglar alarm, fire alarm. I don't know why you guys don't have that yet. The Knoxville Fire Department is investigating a suspected arson incident that occurred at the Eternal Life Harvest Center on Western Avenue in Knoxville, Tennessee. At about 3 a.m. on Wednesday, firefighters responded to a small fire on the exterior of the church, which was quickly extinguished before it could cause significant damage. Surveillance images captured a potential suspect near the premises around the time of the incident. Now, this is why we have a 4K video system. That's the suspect you should look for. Okay, look, man, I'm not dissing the church, but you need a 4K video system so we can actually identify the person and figure out who they are. And that fire alarm, of course. All right. Again on July 8th, man, July 8th was a bad day for churches. Firefighters responded to a blaze at Westtown United Methodist in Albany, Georgia. The fire was reported around 5 p.m. and is believed to have originated in the attic, though the exact cause is still under investigation. Crews quickly contained the fire and no injuries were reported. The church was unoccupied at the time of the incident. Moving on to accidents and other incidents involving vehicles with churches. We got a charter bus that was transporting children and staff back to Pawleys Island from a church summer camp and caught fire on July 11 near exit 24 on I-77 in Richland County, South Carolina. Now, according to the Columbia Richland Fire Department, the fire started in the engine compartment at the rear of the bus and quickly was contained. All 30 occupants, including children and church staff, were able to evacuate safely. I just want you to put this on your list of things that your church needs to practice for, which includes evacuating a bus in case there's a fire or some other incident on the bus. Most churches aren't practicing that. You might want to do a run through just so you can work the cobwebs out. So that way, the first time it happens isn't during a real incident. Next up, we got a sex offender that was arrested after allegedly breaking into Nazarene Missionary Baptist Church, which houses the Joshua Academy preschool. Police responded to a burglary report on the evening of July 7th and found the man inside the church without valid ID. He was taken into custody and charged with felony unlawful entry by a serious sex offender, as well as misdemeanor charges related to failure to carry ID and criminal trespass. I wonder if I'm reading this from the paper about being related for failure to carry ID. That was struck down by the Supreme Court well before I became a cop, and I've been retired a long time. So just my 2 cents. Don't believe everything you see in the paper, but we got to say a sex offender arrested for allegedly breaking in to a church preschool is something to be alarmed about. What were his plans? What was he going to do? Nothing good. I can tell you that. All right, next up on July 7th, deputies with Pinellas County Sheriff's Office responded to a 911 call reporting a man vandalizing Irvine Park Baptist Church in St. Petersburg, Florida. The suspect was actively smearing paint and mud on the church's signage, doors, and walls, and also throwing rocks at passing vehicles. When confronted by the responding deputy, the suspect threatened to shoot him. I advise not doing that. It usually is not going to end out well for you. Now, following his arrest, which I'm sure used that amount of force necessary to make, the man was found in possession of meth. Shocker. Did he have methamphetamine? Oh, he had drug paraphernalia too, and 34 rounds of 9mm ammo. He was arrested for all that. Now, this incident shows the unpredictable threats churches are going to face with people that have extensive criminal histories like this man, drug impairment like this guy probably was under the influence, and mental illness. So the fact that the suspect threatened to shoot a deputy on church property while carrying meth and ammunition just reinforces why safety teams have to have trained to handle more than just passive security roles. Situational awareness, coordination with local law enforcement, proactive deterrence, they all have to be in place. I recommend that you ask somebody that's well-versed. In fact, you want to look for somebody at a police department that's called a drug recognition expert or a DRE to have them come out and do training for you on how to identify people that are high. You just want it down and dirty, how to tell if it's drug impairment or if they're crazy, and then how to de-escalate those people until law enforcement comes. Man, poor New York City. On the 21st of June, a vandal used a crowbar to damage the front doors and a statue of the Virgin Mary at the Holy Family Church in Fresh Meadows, New York. Now, New York has been getting hit hard with these kinds of incidents. Now, a parishioner witnessed the attack and contacted the church's pastor, who called 911. A nearby NYPD officer responded and quickly arrested the 38-year-old Queens resident at the scene. He was charged with a hate crime, good job, criminal mischief, and criminal possession of a weapon. The parish has faced repeated acts of vandalism over the past 2 years, including the destruction of statues of Jesus Christ and an angel. Now, look, we're past the point where these can be dismissed as isolated incidents. When you hit over 500 attacks on Catholic churches alone, it's coordinated, it's ideological, or it's both. Now, the attacker used a crowbar to target not just the door, but a statue of Virgin Mary. Now, churches need to understand that they are in a spiritual and a cultural war. Cameras, lighting, patrols, and hardened targets aren't optional. Now, we don't want you to turn your church into a bunker. We just want you to work harder and be more aware and put those things in place like a 4K video system, burglar alarm, fire alarm, and have a safety ministry at your church. Okay, next up, we're going to move to some of our overseas stories that are affecting our brothers and sisters. On June 8th, a violent mob of Hindu extremists stormed a service at Pineal Prayer Fellowship in Borsi village in India. Now, they were armed with wooden rods, and the attackers beat every member of the small congregation and severely assaulted a 57-year-old pastor, rendering him unconscious. The group destroyed chairs, instruments, and burned all the Bibles and Christian literature. At least 7 members were seriously injured and required hospital treatment. The mob, mostly outsiders, threatened the believers to cease worship services. Despite repeated attacks over the past year and a visible police presence, authorities have failed to register a formal complaint or provide meaningful protection. 2 other churches in the district were also harassed on the 29th, including Elohim Church, where services were disrupted by Hindu nationalists. Now, just my thoughts on this. Acts 5:29 reminds us that we must obey God rather than men. In fact, I've got this great shirt for you if you want. Trust God, not government, with an Acts 5:29 on there. I love that shirt. But it reminds us that we must obey God rather than men, and this becomes especially clear in places like India and Nigeria, where governments often turn a blind eye to violent persecution against Christians. In such situations, believers must take their own security seriously. Churches should be using encrypted communication tools like Signal and Proton Mail to protect sensitive information and coordinate safely. Every congregation should also organize a trusted internal security team trained to recognize threats and protect the flock. Now, if you want this shirt, head on over to ChristianWarriorTraining.com and hit that merch tab. See, Christian Warrior Training, merch tab, and it takes you to all this cool stuff that I've got for you. Head on over there and support the channel. I'd appreciate it. Next up, we're going to head to Khartoum, Sudan, where a Pentecostal church complex was destroyed this week by extremists reportedly supported by members of the Sudanese armed forces and the police. And that's according to Christian Solidarity Worldwide. The church was originally built in the early 90s and was demolished amid Sudan's ongoing civil conflict between the SAF and Rapid Support Forces. All right, that's all I got for now. For all of you that have been tuning in and following through this whole thing, you made it to the end, thank you so much. If you could pray for all the affected churches and all the affected people in the stories that we talked about. Pray for the safety of our brothers and sisters overseas that are just being persecuted at crazy rates. And also, I just want to reemphasize, I am seeing a huge uptick in active shooter attempts or people thinking about doing active shooters and being stopped somehow in the last 3 weeks. So make sure you stay vigilant, but don't turn your church into a bunker. You've just got to work harder. Keep your church open. Let people come to Christ. Let them worship. Protect them. Be situationally aware. Just keep your head on a swivel and have a smile on your face. And I want you to remember your ABCs. Always be caring.